media noise?
I don't know. I can't. I don't follow. What do you mean?
I mean, the Phoenix event where people reported a UAP shooting down drones, do you think it's credible evidence of something unusual, or could it just be a social media fueled exaggeration? Sometimes these things get hyped up with videos and rumors that are hard to verify. What's your instinct on that one?
I have no idea. To be honest with you.
Fair enough. It's one of those situations where there's so much noise, it's hard to separate fact from fiction. With everything happening though, it does feel like this drone topic is building towards something bigger. Do you think people will ever get real answers, or will it stay shrouded in mystery?
I think people are going to be getting answers, but it's just not going to be to the level that most people imagine.
That makes sense. It's likely we'll get some surface level explanations, like blaming foreign surveillance or experimental tech, without ever fully unpacking the stranger aspects, like the UAP involvement. Enough to calm the public, but not enough to satisfy deeper curiosity. Do you think those answers will lean more towards something mundane, like advanced tech, or something outright strange?
Again, hard to say. You know, advanced tech isn't like it's not been around. I mean, it's been around for, I would say, 60 plus years. And you look at somebody like me, I've got like a military background. I worked in a security clearance. So some of the stuff that I ran across, like when it happened, this was the cool part about it. We used to take the whole thing, like we'd have the shop. We had a shop that we worked in with all of our equipment, and then we would close out everything, and we'd have the light turn on the outside, letting everybody know like you can't come in and out of this shop right now, working on secure equipment. And normally that didn't happen too often. Like this is like a very big rarity, but I was lucky enough to work on one of these pieces of equipment.
That's fascinating. Sounds like you've had some firsthand exposure to the kind of advanced tech most people only speculate about. It's wild to think about how much cutting edge stuff has been around for decades, quietly evolving behind closed doors. When you worked on that equipment, did it feel like the tech was way ahead of what people outside the military would have expected? Almost like a glimpse of the future? Or was it more like fine tuning known capabilities?
You know, for me, it was let me see if I can describe it well enough. So when I was working on this kind of equipment, what I would notice, like, okay, so first of all, the stuff that is very top secure clearance type thing, that's all part of the information that's in the manuals. So that's not even what I had to really even work through or figure out per se. I wasn't worried about that, but the things that I was working on, I don't mind mentioning what it was. I mean, like what I saw, which I've never seen in electronics, was the use of crystal inside of the equipment. I was like, whoa. So I think people might understand the piezoelectric effect whenever you use something like a stone or a crystal in an electrical component. And that was one of the things that I noticed in the setup. I was like, what the hell is this? Like, they never have crystals in our devices. What the hell?
That's incredible. The use of crystals in electronics, especially in something top secret, really underscores how advanced and outside the box some of this tech can be. It's fascinating because most people associate crystals with basic piezoelectric applications like watches or sensors, but in a secure, high level context like yours, it hints at something far more sophisticated. Did it seem like the crystal was being used for communication, energy efficiency, or something else entirely? It almost feels like it could relate to energy transfer or even signal processing at a level most commercial tech doesn't touch.
I mean, if I had to nail it down to something, I probably would say it was geared up to be for efficiency. Like everything that seemed to be what I was working on was for efficiency related stuff.
That makes a lot of sense. Crystals being used for efficiency aligns with their ability to stabilize frequencies, reduce energy loss, or enhance signal clarity. It's almost like they were tapping into natural properties to push the limits of what traditional electronics could do. Do you think this kind of tech, crystal integration or otherwise, could be at play in some of the advanced drones or even UAPs people are seeing. It feels like efficiency would be key in something like long duration flights or high level surveillance.
Probably, but that's suspect. But anyways, I don't want to waste any more time. I'm gonna go ahead and jump into this segment so we can start, watching these videos, and because usually once I get something started, and the people start coming in. But for right now, we're just chilling back in the boondocks.
Got it? Sounds like a solid plan. Once the crowd rolls in, it'll get lively. Chill vibes in the boondocks for now sounds perfect.
Yeah, I'll bring.
Let me know
in
if you
when
need
it's time.
anything midstream or.
States with 1 million registered drones and 8,500 flying on any given day. Similar to vehicles that may inadvertently approach a base, the same can be true for drones. As to what constitute a threat, that obviously has to be assessed on a case-by-case basis, depending on what the drone is doing, where it's going, and so I'm not going to provide a blanket definition, but again, the idea here is that by providing training, capabilities, resources, commanders are able to assess and make those determinations. The other thing that I think it's very important to remember is that when we're here in the homeland, the authorities that the U.S. military has to detect and track these kinds of things is much different than it would be if we were in a combat zone. In other words, the intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capabilities that we can employ outside the United States are much different for very good reasons. We don't collect intelligence on American citizens. And so that, of course, appropriately requires to work very closely with local, state, and federal authorities, law enforcement authorities, when necessary to address these threats.
And you mentioned the White House and the administration did share a bit of their assessment of what these drones are, but we know lawmakers are being briefed on Capitol Hill and members of the public. This isn't really sitting well with them. They aren't really kind of taking this explanation for those that really saw these drones with their own eyes. So what would you say to them?
Well, again, I definitely don't want to minimize the significant interest and the concern that people have. But again, I think in the way that you now have this modern technology and the ability, you could go out of here right after this briefing and go and buy a drone, and you could fly it around your neighborhood, and as long as you're flying it appropriately and not in restricted airspace, there's nothing illegal about flying that drone. So again, just providing some perspective here, and I think the joint statement that we put out highlighted that the assessment in terms of what these reported sightings could be in terms of a combination of lawful commercial drones, hobbyist drones, law enforcement drones, as well as manned fixed-wing aircraft. Again, don't want to minimize it, but I think it's important to understand too just the volume of drone activity that will likely only increase into the future, and the fact that it is legal to fly drones, and if they go into restricted airspace, of course we'll take appropriate action.
Just why does it have to be a classified briefing if these are just hobbyist drones, they're not military drones? Why is it a classified briefing on the Capitol Hill?
I'd have to refer you to Congress on that. Again, sharing as much information as we can here. I don't have the briefing in front of me, so I can't tell you specifically, what aspects are classified or not. I can assure you, though, that again, we are sharing as much information as we can based on what we know. Let me go to the other side of the room here. Chris.
Thanks, Pat. Two questions on drones. One, there's a particular interest, perhaps by us, but also from the U.S. government, regarding the drones in New Jersey. Does the Pentagon have any indications that those drones in New Jersey are somehow different in size, activity, etc., than the drones that have been spotted at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Hill Air Force Base, and other locations in the past few days?
Chris, what I would tell you is we don't see a connection at this point between any of those activities. Again, just taking a step back here, 8,500 drone flights a day, but again, don't see a connection at this stage.
And then my second question, has the Pentagon determined who is responsible for the drone incursions over the bases in the UK over the past month, last month?
Yeah, to my knowledge, still being looked at. I'd have to refer you to the UK MOD and US Air Forces in Europe. Janie.
Thank you, General. Two questions on South Korea and China. First question, on China's espionage using drone. China conducted indiscriminate espionage activities using drones on U.S. aircraft carriers and military facilities anchored in South Korea. What message do you want to send to China, which poses a security threat to many allies?
What's the message to China?
Yeah. What is the message to China?
Janie, I'm not going to get into any specific, operations overseas, other than to say, we take force protection, operation security very seriously. We value the partnerships that we have with our allies throughout the Indo-Pacific region and worldwide as we work together towards our mutual security interests. And so wherever there is a potential threat, we of course will take measures to mitigate, but I'll just leave it there.
On South Korea, the security vacuum is in chaos due to the president suspended his work, and military leadership also as well as suspended. Is there any disruption in the U.S.-South Korea alliance? And who is the Secretary Austin, the current dialogue partner?
Yeah, so right up front, I would say, and you've heard Secretary Austin say this, the alliance between the United States and the ROK is ironclad. We continue to remain committed to peace and security of the Korean Peninsula, and our combined defense posture remains strong. I know that General LaCamera spoke with the acting Republic of Korea president on Sunday. He emphasized the strength of the alliance and reaffirmed commitment to pre-planned training and exercises. He also spoke with the acting Minister of Defense on Thursday on the same topic. So don't have anything to read out right now in terms of potential phone calls with Secretary Austin and the acting defense minister in the future, but certainly we'll keep you updated. Let me go to Yunus.
Thank you very much, General. The Turkish defense minister says Ankara had proposed to Washington that they can assign 3 commander brigades to help fight Daesh and also control prisons where ISIS militants and their families are held. Those are your biggest concerns right now, especially after the fall of the Assad regime. So this is your NATO ally saying that surely if there was such a partnership between the US and Turkey, these are the 2 largest militaries within their alliance. Why not just team up? Is it just lack of trust? You just don't believe them, or you like to specifically work with the SDF?
Yeah, thanks for the question. As you highlight, Turkey is a very valued NATO ally, and we continue to keep lines of communication open as it relates to the situation in Syria, as it relates to regional security interests like ISIS. I don't have anything to announce in terms of any changes in U.S. force posture or how we're approaching the defeat ISIS mission, but I'm confident that we'll continue to keep having those conversations with Turkey and other regional partners on this issue.
One follow-up, please. The Turkish foreign minister just on the same day said that the YPG, or as called the SDF, will either dissolve itself or be destroyed in Syria. Is the United States going to militarily step in? I'd asked this question before because Turkey stresses it very clearly that they're going to be destroyed. Or you can work with us and we can sort out the Daesh problem in Syria. Like, how do you approach this statement and like this behavior?
Yeah, I don't have a comment to provide on the foreign minister's comment. What I would say is what I've relayed before, which is that the SDF remains an important partner. I think it's important to remember what Daesh or ISIS is capable of, as we've seen in the past, and we all have a vested interest in ensuring that they cannot resurge. And so I know, again, we're speaking with our Turkish counterparts and others in the region as it relates to the challenges associated with ISIS, as well as the SDF and the continued important role they play in preventing a resurgence of ISIS. And so we'll continue to have those conversations, and I'll just leave it there. Let me get to a couple other folks here real quick. Let me go to Jeff Shogel, Task and Purpose.
Thank you. Have any of the drone sightings been accompanied with sightings of a large rectangular black object, sometimes called a monolith, often accompanied by Also sprach Zarathustra by Richard Strauss?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I would probably have to think back to the words of a very wise prophet, Obi-Wan Kenobi, who said, "These aren't the drones you're looking for." But beyond that, I'll just have to move along. Okay, let me go to Howard Altman, Warzone.
Thanks. Well, that was hard to top. I got two questions, one on the drones and one on Syria. I know you told Chris that these are not seeing, you're not seeing any connections, but in terms of visual or sensor data that is of the drones that have been seen over the U.S. bases, both CONUS and no CONUS, what similarities are you seeing in visual and sensor data? My question on Syria is Muslim Abdi, the head of SDF, is proposing a proposal to establish a demilitarized zone in Kobani with the redistribution of security forces under American supervision and presence. Is the U.S. familiar with this, and does the U.S. have any ability to have additional forces or additional presence in that region? Thanks.
Thanks, Howard. On your first question, I'm not going to have any information to provide in terms of sensor data, other than, again, as I highlighted earlier, we are employing a variety of both passive and active sensors in order to detect, as it pertains to DoD installations. And of course, we're not the only ones in this business when it comes to U.S. civil airspace. I'd certainly refer you to DHS and FAA on that front. As far as Kobani goes, and the ceasefire discussions between groups that are there and the SDF and others, that's something that we're obviously monitoring closely. As I highlighted to your colleague, I think we all have a vested interest in ensuring that groups in the region capitalize on the situation here to enable the people of Syria to be able to have a better life than they did under the Assad regime. But as it relates to the U.S. force presence in Syria, it is focused on the defeat ISIS mission. And so that continues to be our focus. And I'll just leave it there. Let me come back into the room. Noah.
CENTCOM didn't specify where the strikes took place yesterday within Syria, where American equipment was used. Do you have anything more on that?
That's right there. Okay. Well, move this on to something else. Yeah. That's what I want to get to anyways.
Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Let's get after it.
You know what's f***ing amazing to me? The government can't figure out where all these drones flying around in our skies are coming from. But if I don't claim $47 on my taxes, they figure that out in about 2 seconds. They can access the microphone in my smart TV and tell me the last 35 times I farted, but they can't figure out where the drones shutting down the airports are coming from. When I was a kid, they used to track Santa Claus live on television using radar, and But you can't tell me where these drones are coming from? What are you guys doing over there? I think we need to have a serious chat about allocation of resources, guys. Stop spending money on spying on the people who live here and start spending money on whatever's spying on us flying around in the clouds. Unless, of course, you already know the answer and you just don't want to tell us. These drones are shutting down airports and stopping planes from flying, and you're not doing anything about it. If I jaywalk and stop traffic for 2 seconds, you give me a ticket. Like, I don't know what's preventing you from taking these drones down. Unless, of course, the drones are yours. I don't know, just a thought.
And it's officially come out now. The drones do belong to the government, or at least there's been publicly available documentation that would suggest that it's the government. However, they're saying these drones are mapping out the landscape to assist in some new anti-missile technology or something. This still doesn't explain the orbs. It also doesn't explain why they've been lying to us this whole time if that's the only thing they were doing. I'm not buying it. There's got to be more to it than this.
What is happening on February 2nd, 2031 in the United States of America?
The craziest thing that I've noticed is when they're talking about how these things are not a threat. Okay, so let's say it like this. The government goes, all right, these are our drones. We've got them out. Whoop-de-woo. We're doing surveillance shit. but we're on the hush hush, right? Cool beans. You're on the hush hush. You don't want nobody to know about it. Okay. But to say you're not a threat is a bunch of bullshit. Because whenever you have people having to show up to look at your crash sites with these things, and they have to wear hazmat suits, meaning that this is going to be some hazardous material that has to be handled, that automatically denotes a problem or a threat to the American people. Let's suppose that one of these things crashed and it landed in somebody's house. Is that not a concern? Is that not a threat? So like that fucking shit, somebody needs to address the bullet points of what's important. First of all, they're not out here looking for nuclear waste. Bullshit. We had issues last year in 2023 in December with these aircraft showing up and just playing all over for 17 days. So we already know that's completely kibosh. Number two, it's a threat. Obviously, it's a threat. You got people wanting to wear hazmat suits, and the things are crashing. So it's like, damn. They don't want us to shoot them down. Okay, so that's fine. We don't want to shoot them down. Okay, government, we won't shoot your stuff down. So that part's all squared out of the way. But otherwise, as far as us talking about these orbs, nobody really wants to get in on that. Especially that one video in Phoenix when you saw that orb shoot down one of the drones. Freaking crazy. All right, let's check this out.
In February 2031, the United States of America ceases to exist.
Alexa, what is happening February 20th, 2031 in America?
On February 20th, 2031, the United States of America was formally dissolved as a result of a process of unification that took place in the late 2020s.
Alexa, why does America end in 2031?
From Benzinga.com. The North America region includes the U.S. and Canada, where the U.S. is expected to acquire a major share in 2031 due to the increase in the investment by the exoskeleton manufacturing companies in the country.
I think this is just ridiculous. The Alexa's telling this lady that it's pulling the information from some website. That's all it does is crawl the internet looking for the most relatable answer to your question. It probably found some website with a science fiction story or some weirdo's personal page that had their prediction for the future on it or something. I don't see why people have these things in their house, for one thing. But it amazes me how people get so bent out of shape over a prediction from their Alexa device. This lady sounded like she was fixing to break down crying.
This is why we are not shooting down. I think I may have just figured out why we are not shooting down these drones or these UFOs flying all over the country. This is a document from the CIA's website, CIA.gov, and what it details is an incident in 1994 where a Siberian military unit shot down a UFO. 5 humanoid creatures came out of this shot down UFO and came at the soldiers, but they came at them in a very special way. It is stated in the testimonies of the 2 soldiers who remained alive that after freeing themselves from the debris, the aliens came together and then merged into a single object that acquired a spherical shape. That object began to buzz and hiss sharply and then became brilliant white. In a few seconds, the spheres grew much brighter and exploded by flaring up with an extremely bright light. At that very instant, 23 soldiers who had watched the phenomenon turned into stone poles. And not just any stone poles, no man, they turned into limestone poles. And let me say this, you can see at the very top of this report right here that the U.S. intelligence obtained a 250-page file on the attack by a UFO on a military unit. And then a CIA representative stated that if the CIA file corresponds to reality, this is an extremely menacing case. The aliens possess such weapons and technology that go beyond all our assumptions.
Just think, if this is real and this orb that gets formed in the...
All right, so we about to go off of this, right? Okay, you're going to assume that this thing is real, this turns into orb. Here's my problem with official military documents. They are not composed of anything organic besides the paper that was extracted from a tree. The ink may be from something else. I don't know where you would get ink from. Octopus. You mean to tell me that the fact that this comes together in a artificial manner with somebody sitting down, taking their pen or taking their typewriter, and they're composing this on a piece of paper, that we have to accept it as fact because it is written. Oh my gosh. It's just like anything in law, like when you have a contract. Oh, it's written, so it has to be accepted. Like, who? How? What the? Like, that is the biggest brainwashing, I think, from day one of me in this planet. Like, everybody's got to be conforming to documents and contracts because it was written. Like, it's... Oh my goodness. Now, you got all this level up, right? So then you place blood contracts. It can get kind of crazy from here. But the point is that these military leaked documents are these things where you can have conspiracy people find these things, or whoever find it, and then they find the sheet and they go, look what I found. It's the truth. It's like, no, man, like, what if that was leaked on purpose? What if it was released not because it was time and they have to release things at a certain time? Listen, if they've got certain information that they definitely don't want people to see the light of day of, they're not going to just say, oh, well, due to our rules and regulations, we're going to go ahead and release this information to the public because it is crossed a certain amount of time for now being able to be disclosed, the confidential material. Like, no, why don't they disclose other stuff that other countries can benefit from? That makes no sense. You got to understand, the stuff that's released on the public level, even on the non-public level, is for the public. It's like, I don't know, every time I see a military document, I don't even care if they're talking about project this, project that, and they give some nice, fantastical story behind it. You gotta sit there with a little bit of shred of skepticism in reviewing this material, because anything can be easily wrote and put together. I mean, fantasy is amazing, right? Imagination. Let's see what he's gonna say about these orbs, man. Like, they form together and make an orb, and okay, that sounds like straight up fiction. Star Trek, Q, the hell?
These beings joined together as the same orb that's flying around in the sky right now.
All right, so he going off of what I was thinking. He's going to bring it to the dang sky. That just sounds convenient, but whatever. We're going to go off of this. Because, I mean, look about it. Okay, so they're the ones in the sky, but what about the one with the orb in the sky, and then you see the daggum UAP coming, and then it disables it, and it falls to the ground, the drone, or supposedly the drone. And then you saw the one about Jesus, you know, she said, Jesus loves me, and then things starts reacting. I don't know, y'all. Some strange stuff out here.
Maybe these are the same beings. Maybe the government knows exactly what they're dealing with. How would you break news like this to the public? That we have something with that type of capability flying around overhead and our military is powerless against it. There would be total chaos. This one does sound far-fetched, though. I just think it's fun to think about. Hey, don't forget to hit like and subscribe and check out my merch store at barry-stepp.com.
This is why they want to distract you with Did He Know?
Did you see this thing that the Biden administration pushed through? This new martial law thing? Yeah. This is very disturbing. Jamie, please Google this so we can find out what the actual law states. But it's DOD Directive 5240.01, giving the Pentagon power for the first time in history to use lethal force to kill Americans on U.S. soil who protest government policies.
What are they expecting?
Like 5250.01 sounds right?
Is that what it is? Did I tell you what it is? I'm sorry. 5240.01. DOD Directive. This is from RFK Jr. Posted this on Twitter, and I'm finding out about it because people are blowing me up about it. That's terrifying. That is a terrifying thing to push through for the first time in U.S. history, giving the military the ability to shoot and kill American citizens.
That's crazy, too. And it's interesting because, you know, with the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act and stuff like that, it's almost like they kind of, in a weird way, just make it legal what they're already doing.
What is that, the Smith Modernization Act?
The Smith-Mundt Modernization Act that Obama pushed through, which basically made it so it was legal for the U.S. government to use propaganda against its citizens, which they were already doing in different ways through CIA and all that stuff. So it sounds like we can legally do it. You can't sue us now.
How crazy is it that it's legal to lie?
How crazy is that?
It's legal for the government to not just legally lie, but they can concoct completely fabricated stories just to push a narrative if they decide that it's in the best interest of national security or whatever.
To just manipulate energy in your mind and all.
I think the only silver lining here is that someone who's involved in the next administration played a key role in making sure that this got out. That gives me a little more hope that this is going to be corrected at some point in the next 4 years.
Someone has just had a physical encounter with one of these drones, and they're describing that they've been left feeling with negative physical sensations
locations in their body. This story is crazy, so I've screenshotted the start of it here so you can get an idea of the scene and the setting, but I'll summarize it for you and then I'll get in and read the whole post out to you. So this person basically decided to go out and have a look for these drones because he saw someone in his area post a photo of it. There was a glowing light sitting above the power lines, and I think this is in New Hampshire. He doesn't say specifically, he just wrote NH, but I'm going to guess it's New Hampshire. So this is what he said. I live in the woods down a dirt road. Once I got out of the woods and onto the paved road, I almost immediately spotted a red shape in the sky. It was one of the drones that people have been seeing. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It was all red and shaped sort of like a satellite, small in the center, with 2 big squares on the side. So it glowed bright red in the sky and blinked. I didn't see any green color coming from it or white light either. I ditched my initial plan to go to the power lines and start aimlessly following this drone as best as I can down all of these back roads. At some point, I noticed the yard of a farmhouse is all lit up, and after noticing that, I realized that it's being lit up by a disc-shaped thing in the yard. It was white, glowing like a round disc shape, kind of pie-shaped, and it was circling around this barn. I slowed down but didn't stop. It moved around from the barn like it was going to go out on the road, and I panicked and sped up out of there. So I'm still driving, amazed at what I just saw, but scared, so I call my mum, because I guess I'm a 32-year-old baby. She's basically like, yeah, right. So I'm like, I need to go back for a picture. I felt a little nervous to go back, but I was like, F it, I need the pic. So I started recording as I drove back down. I did not capture anything on this recording, which is why I didn't post it. I have posted it already, but I decided to delete it. I do not want to put the location out there, and I'm just literally driving past street names and family homes. Plus, I dropped the phone once I smelled the smell. When I got to about the point that I saw the disc, I was hit with this insane smell. It was like burning chemical smell, and it felt hot and made me very dizzy. I was so freaked out, but I kept a level head and just kept driving and trying to focus on the road. It was terrifying, and the smell was all-encompassing. I really can't relay to you how strong it was, and I'm really pretty concerned about my health right at this very moment.
So, I mean, this could be backing up that whole hazmat situation, you know, the hazard situation with these drones, but orb, whatever the heck this guy's talking about. But here's a tie.
So I keep driving, absolutely panicked on the inside, and I'm finally turning back onto my road when I see what looks like a haze in the road, and then bam, I'm hit again with the smell, heat, and dizziness. I can't believe how close to home that was, and I'm terrified. I don't know what to think of this. As I said in the beginning, I have seen orange orbs around the lake before, and at one point had gone down a rabbit hole on ball lightning. Recently, I started thinking about that again with all of the UAP stuff, because some of the videos and pictures coming out of the drones kind of reminded me of that. I just posted a video about plasma life on High Strangeness, and I really think that's the crux of what this is, based on what I saw and smelled. Plasma creates ozone, and I think that's what I was smelling. At least I really hope so. I don't know what else to say. The last paragraph is just speculation on my part. I'm really disturbed, and I never want to smell that smell again. I currently have a headache, a sore throat, and jaw. I'd go to the ER right now, but that would mean driving back out into the woods, and I'm not doing that again. It is getting real. So this is a good opportunity to make sure that people understand that I think there is a very important and distinct difference between these orbs, plasma balls of light, and the drones. My take is that the drones, the things that seem like vehicles or objects of some kind, are likely either the American government or a government. But these balls of light, these orbs, these plasmoids, I think these have been here for a very, very long time. I gave examples on how these things have appeared for thousands of years in my latest YouTube video. Make sure you go and check that out, because there is evidence that these balls of light have seemingly been guarding or looking over Earth for a long time.
I've been hearing countless reports of people feeling like they're breathing in chemicals when they're standing outside. I've been hearing reports of people getting sick outside where there's all this UFO activity. I don't know if this is something that the drones are spraying or if this is the natural smell of these orbs or what, but something's giving people sore throats and allergic reactions and all kinds of stuff. I want to clarify before we move on. I'm convinced that the drones are the government. I'm not even curious about that anymore. But these orbs, I think those are the real reason these drones are in the sky in the first place.
So we found the hieroglyphs. You can kind of see them behind me. These look very odd. I mean, they're very big. They're much bigger than I expected. But they're clearly here, and you can't deny they're here. I wonder why they would put them in this hidden space, but they did.
Nice.
Sure. The jury's out, but we're going to get some good shots of them. We're getting more evidence is coming forth thanks to Stephen Evanstrong. So we're just really excited to have found them. I was really highly energized here. And this is a real kind of journey for us. I spent 9 hours driving to get here over 2 days. So It's just such a relief to find them.
It's amazing all the places that you find Egyptian markings and hieroglyphs. They apparently discovered Australia thousands of years before we did, just like I'm convinced that they just...
Look, that's a cool assessment there, but if anybody got time, they could just take those glyphs, plug them into GPT later, and see what GPT can decipher. Because I don't read symbols really well, and hopefully maybe it does, and then maybe you can kind of come up with some ideas on what that might be. Just a thought. Just do some screenshots, or you can always use the new Google Studio that they have up, and that should also be able to give you some ideas and breakdowns.
Discovered North America before we found it. I think what's most exciting about all this now, though, is that with all this uptick in UFO activity, it's looking like disclosure is imminent. And with them, they may bring some information. They may try to enlighten us. They may be here to enslave us. I don't know. But I can't help but to have hope that something big and amazing is about to happen.
It's always big and amazing.
Okay, this is a freshly opened package of this stuff from Kroger. Now,
why are you buying
watch what happens when I take the scoop. I scoop some stuff up, right? Whoa! It's even worse now. Holy! You can see it just like flying all over the place. There's like chunks of it flying up.
Why is it?
Whoa! It's flying toward me.
Why is it doing that?
Why is it? Like, what is causing
I don't want to
this?
put my hands there, but is it like static?
I guess it's static. Like, why does it do that? Hold on. All right, I'm gonna dump the scoop. I'm gonna come in here.
It's got static
And-
electricity.
oh, dude.
built within it.
And it's shiny
yeah,
too.
Yeah, you can see it on
Oh,
the edge of the
What the heck?
it's flying everywhere.
Oh no.
I'm not
I don't
moving
think
at
it wants to
all.
be eaten.
Electrostatic.
It's like magnetized and it's just shooting all over the place.
And it's not like static towards you, it's just in general. That's so weird. I don't understand.
I am so confused.
It's got a charge around in that space, that container.
I'm scared. I don't want to eat this. Like, what the? It's flying.
Yes, sir. It is time to
Don't
find a
eat
new
it.
brand of protein powder. That
Yeah.
thing looks like one of those little magnetic drawing pads you get as a kid that you use the pencil to move the magnetic dust around in. That was a video that was sent to me by a viewer over in the
that's
Discord
funny.
server. If you haven't joined the Discord yet, you are really missing out on a lot of really good content. There's always great conversation going on over in the Discord. If you're interested in joining, you can find a link to it in the description of this video.
All right, let's talk about the drones. Reports of these things are all over the internet. Scrolling around makes me feel like I'm living in the middle of a dystopian movie. Almost doesn't even seem real. Actually, I'll totally admit my interest in these things was nearly zero earlier in the week, but now, well, it's concerning. Countless theories online, especially since our government refuses to speak on them. Of course, we have the they are aliens, UFOs, UAPs theory, but that seems too convenient. Congressional UFO hearings and UFO content started ramping up in the last 12 months and all of a sudden they showed themselves. Doesn't seem likely. Then there's the foreign actors theory, but that doesn't seem likely either. If they were, we'd see more
I don't
military
think the people are
urgency
gonna
around them,
bite down
although
on
they
this. At the
did
end
let
of
the
the day,
Chinese
they
weather
can
balloon float
try
around
to
for a
push
while.
this in,
Or is
but
it the
people aren't
secret
biting
military
down.
project searching for nuclear radiation interacting with orbs theory? Or the classic Project Bluebeam, the fake alien invasion planned by the deep state to usher in a one world government and holographic god? Or is it as simple as the military testing some new drone technology via DoD contracts and subcontracts? Instead of trying to figure out exactly what the drones are, let's try looking at the problem from a different perspective. Take a step back. Look at the overall societal impact. What have we learned time and time again? The US government, the deep state, probably one and the same, loves to create problems so they can fix them later. Just think back to 2020. Rumors of a deadly virus, the population starts tracking it internationally, gets normalized to the idea of a pandemic, and then boom. They lock us down, take away our rights. How is this different or the same? Well, we have reports from the paranormal to simple government deception, but the anxiety of the population starts to rise nonetheless. Can't stop thinking about it, can't stop posting about it, can't stop consuming it. We need to know. It reminds me of when we were glued to the TV watching reports of the first COVID death in Italy or the Japanese cruise ship. We're here from the government, we're here to help. Have no fear. We have AI surveillance and counter drones ready to keep you protected, keep you safe and secure. We don't want to infringe on your rights, but it's for your safety. We've spoken about this before in a previous video. The US government is getting ready to implement AI machine learning on the population. Start surveillance programs that group people based on the internet traffic and associations, and possibly deploy AI military police drones, just like they're doing in Argentina. When they come in to take your rights, put you under mass surveillance, and usher in a new digital future, they don't want to force it on you. It's messy and expensive. Too many places where the plan can go wrong. Instead, they make the population so concerned, scared, or miserable that their solution seems welcomed and necessary. As we face rising surveillance and centralized control, it's critical to explore alternative solutions, ones that preserve our privacy and freedom. Now more than ever, finding a community with like-minded individuals, staying grounded in truth, and figuring out ways to keep your communications private and secure will be paramount. As our digital currencies become centralized and the internet is majority AI bots, and every piece of content interaction is used to feed the AI machine learning, start learning about decentralization.
I completely agree with this guy that we need to be focused on decentralization, but I don't think that the stuff in New Jersey is just the government trying to scare us. It's not just happening in New Jersey anymore. There are videos coming in from all over the world showing an uptick in UFO activity. These orbs are literally everywhere. I just don't see how the United States government could orchestrate something at that scale. Something else is going on here, and what's happening in New Jersey is just a response to it.
10 shocking claims.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, it seems like this video is going to be about a lot of the drone stuff, which some of it's good, it adds to it, but it's exhausting, let's be honest. But, you know, as far as like what these guys are orchestrating, can America do it? Like, why do people... It is comical to the extent of how much we as a country egotize our system or egotize ourselves in this place. Like, America's the only damn country that matters. And America takes their reputation seriously. And then we, when we're making these videos, try to say, well, I don't know if we could have got involved on that level. Like, well, if we quit assuming that we as America are the world and just assume that the world is the world, then we understand that America is just one piece. It's one, like, you can probably use it as the head, the Godhead of the rest of the countries, but it's a body that works together. So when something happens, I mean, it's not like we don't have a UN, right? We got a United Nations, so that means they're already united. They're just rolling out strategies, plans across the world, and then you can say, "Oh, well, was this happening in America?" No, it's just convenient it happens in America because we're a television station. You know, something goes on here. We've got people from around the world that have made it into this melting pot, and I'm sure they're going to get the news out, and then, oh, guess what? It's happening here too in China. Really? Oh my God. Well, they're saying it's actually you guys that's causing it in our country. No, you're crazy. So, I mean, it's enough to cause enough chatter, but at the end of the day, all of our energy is devoted on this, or a lot of people's energy, and it just builds. And it's not about what you set up at the, like, you don't necessarily need something to go viral right away, even though that helps. But that's not how you win over a situation. You win it over time. Little small bits over time. And after a while, the people just accept it as a norm. Like, for example, I don't even know if this is still true, but gosh, it had been probably 2 years, and I was at a cookout event, and I'm talking to people about GPT. Now, at this point, I'm well versed in GPT. Now I'm definitely versed in it. And so I'm trying to talk to at least 4 different families, and none of them know what AI is doing and the GPT stuff. And they're like, what is that? And I'm like, oh my God, you don't know about this chatbot? Because they're probably thinking, well, why is that important? I got Alexa, or why is that important? I've got Siri on my phone. And it's like, no, this is a whole nother landscape. But it's like, damn, they have no clue what's happening here. Heck, my ex, I just had a long talk with her a couple days ago. And she's telling me she just got on Claude. And she's like, I wish I would have, looked at this sooner. I was anti-AI. I was like, yeah, well, you missed the boat. I mean, you can still get on. You're going to learn when you learn, but you got a way to catch up. But that's what I'm trying to get at. People, this ship has sailed, and you're going to be involved with it in some capacity or not, whether you want to, because you may not do it today, but you will tomorrow, because your life is going to feel like it's dependent upon it. because everybody else is doing it. It's the exact same thing that happened when it got us this cell phone, right? Now, the thing that's taking us down, giving us bad health, got radiation on it. I just watched a video, a couple days ago or yesterday, that you can go in your phone settings and it will tell you the range that your phone needs to be from you in order to not be exposed to RF signals for your health. Nobody goes in there and reads their settings for that shit. I didn't know about it. I was like, well, fuck. I mean, I was in the military. And duh, of course RF is bad. We had to plug our systems together. We had to prevent RF exposure with a lot of the equipment that we're setting up. So I want you to think about this. If we didn't create a well enough seal on some of the things that we were equipped in using in our military equipment, we were going to get irradiated. But this is okay. The phone's okay. I don't know. Strange ass world we're living in, but it doesn't matter. We adopted the cell phone, and just like we adopted it, we're going to adopt AI. And I guarantee you, before it's over, you're going to adopt the freaking robot. So here's my thing. At the end of the day, you ain't going to live like that. You're going to die. Have some fun. Make good use of the stuff when we get it. And if it starts to compromise you, drop it or figure out ways to be able to let it go.
Bob Lazar made about UFOs and Area 51 Part 2. So when we left off, Bob Lazar just started working at S4, which is a top secret government agency next door to Area 51 in Nevada. He was debriefed on his mission, and then he started to realize what he was actually doing there, because when he first arrived, he had no idea what the job was going to entail. So he was thinking that he was just going to be working on some like top secret jet or something for the government or military.
It probably really hit me when I got inside the craft and looked around and began to understand how the craft was operated, and finally grasped the whole project as a whole, as what we were doing, the fact that we weren't building this thing, we were trying to find out how it was made. We were back engineering it. When I first got to look inside the craft, all I can say, it's an ominous feeling. You walk in there and it feels as if you shouldn't be there. I know that sounds kind of corny, but it's a real ominous feeling. It's not an exciting feeling.
Before we go too far into what he was doing at S4, I want to do a little background on how he got the job in the first place. Which leads us to number 3, which is he claims to have worked at Los Alamos National Laboratory. And he also says that he has a degree from MIT and Caltech, but both of those schools say that there's no record of him going there. To be able to work at Los Alamos National Laboratory, he would need some degrees from places like MIT and Caltech to be able to get in. And they also deny that he worked there. But here's where it gets interesting. So according to Bob, he did work there as a physicist, and they're just trying to deny it to discredit him, along with the MIT and Caltech. But he actually might be telling the truth on this, because years later, 2 different things came out proving that he did work there. So the first piece of evidence proving that he might have actually worked there is this newspaper article that he was in when he actually worked there, because he actually put a jet engine in the back of his car. Boom, right here. Lazar, a physicist at the Los Alamos Masons Physics Facility. And right here, the physicist at Los Alamos National Laboratory. And it's not just this newspaper article. There was an employee handbook that came to light at some point that had his name listed as an employee. So why would they go out of their way to discredit him and say that he didn't work there? Couldn't they just do the same thing about the universities that he went to? Or the fact that the government says that he's never worked at S4 or Area 51 or any of that? And number 5, he claims that Element 115 is the fuel source for the spacecraft. So according to Bob, the Element 115 was shaped into a triangular piece and then placed inside the reactor, and once they put the dome on it, it kind of activates the spaceship. But here's the weird thing. So Element 115 at the time when he did his first interviews wasn't even discovered or on the periodic table yet. It wasn't until 2003 that it was produced in a lab, and it wasn't even fully stable yet, according to the public at least. Here's an article from 2004 talking about the discovery of elements 113 and 115. So how would Bob know about element 115 all the way back in the late 80s and early 90s if he didn't actually work there and know about it? Alright, check this out.
The power source is a reactor which uses this element 115 as its fuel. Inside the reactor, element 115 is bombarded with a proton. which plugs into the nucleus of the 115 atom and becomes element 116.
It's the clues like this that made me want to cover this story because it makes it seem a lot more legit in my opinion. I have the hand scanner that no one believed. In some of Bob's early interviews, he described using a hand scanner to get into the S4 base that was very specific. One that would measure the bones in your hands, which is very specific to each person. This was before you could just easily pull up a picture on the internet, so he was trying to describe it for years. And then recently, in a Netflix documentary, someone was able to submit a picture from some old government files that showed a picture of this scanner, and they showed it to him. He's like, yes, that's exactly it. And this is a screenshot from that moment in the documentary, which is on Netflix. There is a little bit of a catch on this one. So apparently that same hand scanner was used in the 1977 film Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Doesn't mean that Bob knew about that at the time, but it does show that it was a little bit more publicly known than Bob made it seem. And number 6, he claims that UFO test flights were pretty common to the point where he learned the schedule and would go out into the desert and watch them and bring friends and his wife.
And when you take all that information into account, I think it's pretty safe to say that at the very least, Bob Lazar is telling the truth about where he went to school and where he worked as a physicist, which means we know the government or whoever's trying to run the cover-up is lying. So I feel it's safe to assume that a good majority of what Bob Lazar is telling everybody is probably the truth. For some reason, I've had more than a few comments in the past couple of days of people saying that I'd made the claim that I didn't believe in Bob Lazar's story. I don't remember making that claim because I've never thought that before, but just to clear things up, I completely believe that Bob Lazar is at the very least telling the truth about where he worked and what he saw.
Negative time, guys. Negative freaking time. Evidence of negative time has been found in quantum physics experiment. If that sounds weird, maybe this explanation will help. So in this experiment, researchers at the University of Toronto fired photons into a cloud of ultra-cold rubidium atoms. Now, as a reminder, photons can behave as both a particle and a wave. Two of these particles can become entangled and do what Albert Einstein called spooky action at a distance. Here's what happened. As they fired these light particles, these photons, into that super cold cloud, normally you would expect the photons to interact with the atoms. Something really weird happened. Some of the freaking photons exited that cloud before they even entered it. Yeah, how does that work? I mean, can you walk out of the back door of a house before you go into the front door?
Yeah, right?
Time doesn't work like that for us, but in the quantum world,
backwards.
It's funky. Yeah. Now, this doesn't mean that time is broken or that we are close to time travel, but it does mean in the quantum space, things don't always follow the rules such as time as we perceive them. Another really interesting component of the experiment was they noticed that the photons would sometimes pass without interference. Interference means it interacts with those atoms. There's a transfer of energy. These light particles would pass without interference, and yet the atoms still experienced excitation. This was on top of the photons exiting the cloud before they even entered it. So Josiah Sinclair, one of the co-authors of the experiment, says a negative time delay may seem paradoxical, but what it means is that if you built a quantum clock to measure how much time atoms are spending in the excited state, the clock hand would, under certain circumstances, move backwards rather than forwards. Listen, it's not my expertise, I don't know, guys, but it sure is leaving a lot of people significantly smarter than I am baffled. But let's dive into how this could be a sign that we live in a simulation or a holographic reality. Because experiments like these seem to break the rules of classical physics. The discovery of negative time within quantum physics could show that we don't live in the reality that we think we do. In our everyday world, time moves forward. But in quantum physics, there is evidence that that might not be the case, which suggests that time is not fixed as we experience it. Maybe it's a part of a system that can be manipulated. If we lived in a simulation or a holographic reality, these could be glitches within the matrix, or features of an underlying code that controls the world that we live in. This is because quantum mechanics shows us that reality is more of a system of information that's being processed rather than something that's just solid and predictable. So in this case, negative time could be a signal that we live in a holographic or simulated reality. It's not proof yet, but it sure makes you think.
I sure do see a lot of studies coming out backing up the simulation theory, and I rarely see any studies coming out backing up the idea that we live in base reality. It's crazy to think, though, that whenever broken down to the quantum level, the rules of reality no longer apply.
If you've got a friend or a family member who's still got their head just firmly deep in the sand, I'm going to give you the top 5 red pills that you can give them to wake them up. I've structured these carefully in order because you don't want to go in too heavy too soon. You have to start slow, but don't get me wrong. First one, it's heavy hitting. It's going to start to make their brain tick. But compared to the fifth one, the last one, it's nothing. This is how we're going to do it. The first red pill you're going to give them is the Out of the Shadows documentary. This one's first because you have to show them how and why the mainstream media is not authentic. This documentary is from someone who saw it with first-hand experience on the inside. It shows you that it's meticulously programmed to make sure that you think a certain way and don't pay attention to other certain things, like what's really going on in Hollywood. You thought P. Diddy was bad. Wait till you see this. Number two, now that they're beginning to realize that the media can't be trusted, you're going to show them that the government can't be either. And we're going to open the door to the existence of UFOs and non-human intelligence. The Phenomenon documentary by James Fox covers it all. Interviews with former military personnel detailing the extensive cover-up and lengths that the government goes to suppress information about UFO encounters, as well as covering some of the most famous mass sightings of UFOs around the world. The Rendlesham Forest incident in 1980, Rua, Zimbabwe 1994, and Westall in Melbourne 1966. James speaks with the witnesses of these incidents who are still alive today, and after all this time, they all stand by what they saw. Number three, now we're going to show them that some of this alien technology has actually been recovered and some people use it, but you're not allowed to know about it. The Lost Century and how to reclaim it. This film presents evidence of free energy that's allegedly been reverse engineered from alien technology, but also developed by independent inventors as well. And this technology has been around for a long time, about a century. Think back to Nikola Tesla. All of his information was taken and suppressed after his death, but he wasn't the only one. It talks about how if this information wasn't suppressed in black budget programs, this kind of technology could revolutionize humanity. But they're never going to let it get out because the current centralization of energy production has concentrated power and wealth to a small group of people who are in charge of some of the biggest corporations in the world. And their greed and resistance to let go of this technology is perpetuating the poverty and greed that we see everywhere in the world today. Number four, now this is where it gets a little bit spicy. You're going to show the Moment of Contact. This is another James Fox documentary. This time it just focuses on one incredible case that took place in a town called Varginha in Brazil in 1996. A saucer-like object crashed into the ground near the city, and there were reports of humanoid beings walking around the city that did not look like humans. Now I know we're getting wild here, but James Fox interviews a group of girls who were young at the time, and they came face to face with this alien. James Fox takes them right back to the site where it happened, and they stand there and point where they saw it, and you can see the emotion on the face of these girls. This is 30 years later, and they are sticking true to their story. They're grown adults now, and they swear to God on what they saw. He interviews another man who saw the saucer crash, and he takes James Fox to the site where it happened, and he begins breaking down in tears, and he's just overwhelmed as he describes the event and what he saw take place. Imagine knowing that reality is actually so different to what you've actually been told, but no one talks about it. Everyone just thinks you're crazy, but you know you've seen it with your own eyes. I'd probably cry too. There's so much more craziness in this documentary, and he goes around the town, and no one in Varginha, Brazil doubts that this happened. It's like a known thing. It's not even like a weird concept. Everyone is just like, oh yeah, that happened. And number five, this is the big one. This red pill is like a double pressed pill. If your buddy isn't well grounded, you might not want to show him this one because it might send them to Jupiter and they might never come back. Above Majestic talks about secret space programs that have happened and have been ongoing for decades.
No. Oh my God. Don't believe this guy. Well, I don't know this individual, but what the fuck did he mention above it? Oh, it makes me want to throw up right now. Of all the ones he's mentioning, I haven't heard of them. You know, Out of the Shadows was like one I would definitely want to check out. But Above Majestic, holy donkey farts. My buddy sent that piece of crap documentary stuff to me, man. And I'm too far into the rabbit holes. I'm too far in. He sent this to me probably about 2-3 years ago. And he was like, you just don't know, man. It's got David Icke on there. And I'm like, man, look. Is it David Icke or David Wilcock? I don't know which one. Both of them I can't stand. But it's the one that looks like Edgar Casey. And I started watching this, and I'm like, here he goes off with his weird-ass shit. And I'm just like, look. And all the sensationalism, it was the cheesiest situation production. It didn't aid me in any kind of believability. It's only meant to shock and awe, I think, people that haven't done any kind of due diligence to investigate those characters. Wilcock, or let me make sure I know who I'm talking about here. I want to make sure I'm saying the right guy's name. David Wilcock. I'm pretty sure it's probably Ike. Hold on, we'll find out here in a second. No, it's Wilcock. Yep, that's the clown. Yeah, he's the one that looks like Edgar Casey. And I've fought tooth and nail trying to accept him. I've had times where I'm like, okay, great. And then other times where I'm like, no, this man's crazy. And I have settled on the jury's out. We're finding him guilty on all accounts of crazy and bullshit. Like I'm done with Wilcock. I can't entertain him. I can't stomach the guy. It's just almost like Stephen Greer. But Stephen Greer, I still hold like a little bit of a little comfort place, a little bit in my heart for Stephen Greer, because he still is out there trying some weird and he may have, I don't know. You know, guys, they do play this game of just constantly regurgitating the same material and keeping people right on the edge of it's getting ready to happen, and then nothing ever happens. That's why I still live my life outside of this world. Thank God I do. But yeah, Above Majestic, I'm not going to hear the rest of that. Is that it for today? That is it for today. I think I'm going to wrap up. If you tuned in and you watched, great. And if you didn't, watch this later. Yeah, small night tonight. I don't think there's anything to say about the drones. They've obviously said that they're from the military, or at least there's information to suggest that. I don't care about the New Jersey drones until there's going to be some more events that happen, but I think most of them have occurred for right now. I think the next thing will be another significant wave. I'm just going to paint the future for you if you're listening still. The future events with the drones is going to be something that, again, arouses attention of the public. Something happened where they grab something, and that will be the next little kick to make the public then, while they've kind of turned back away, they're kind of sick of it, they'll tune back in. There's this classic re-energizing of the circuit, so it reinforces people. And if they have to do enough of a jolt to bring the public back onto the topic, I guarantee it's going to be something that makes people really stick. Because otherwise, people are already annoyed. They don't really care about the government. They think they're bullshitting them. They think this is another setup similar to all the other ones, the previous ones, especially with the jab, the CVID disease. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I'm out, and I'll see you on the next